as I was saying, you can see my kicks are hitting here. Also, another little tangent, just because this tutorial is so in depth, and I do want to mention this. I saw a relatively well-known producer who did some beats for Timothy De La Ghetto and did some beats for some well-known YouTubers and had some placements and everything. He originally placed up his methods for mixing and mastering, and he's part of a beat crew. And I guess the supposed beat crew chastised him. You know, he said, "What the hell are you doing telling everybody how to mix and master like us? You know, now that you're telling everybody how we mix and master, everyone's going to have beats like ours." Now, I'm going to tell you right now, if they're saying that, the reason they're saying that is because they're afraid that once everybody can mix and master like they can, their beats won't sound special. And the only reason they're worried about that is because they're not confident enough in their style to know that it will stand out, even among copycats, even among everyone having the same style. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, even though I'm showing you the basics right here of how to get these fundamentals set up, do not be afraid to experiment, because the second you stop learning and the second you stop experimenting is the second you start losing. Because if you're not growing, you're dying. And this is just a template that I use, and I'm always tweaking things and modifying things as I go. Just because I learn new tricks and learn new things, always modify things. And in a month, this entire tutorial might be outdated or something, or there might be some good tidbits in here, but always experiment. And also try and find that unique sound. Like, you're going to listen to a J.R. Rotten beat, and then you're going to listen to a Kane Beats beat, and then you're going to listen to a Drummer Boy beat. They all use claps or snares and kicks and hi-hats, but all the levels aren't identical. The panning isn't identical. Mixing and mastering is as much a style as producing. So keep that in mind. You know, even though I'm showing you this here, try and put your own spin on it. You know, try and mess with your panning or mess with certain plugins and try and find your unique sound. Because if everyone's sounding like me, that it makes everyone's music less special, because you don't have your unique sound. I've lost my unique sound because I've given mine out, but I want to help you guys, and I'm still learning too. So just because I'm showing you this right now doesn't mean this is what my beats are going to sound like in 6 months, or who knows. So just getting into that. So we have the basics down. I'm going to play this drum set again here. You can see that everything's peaking around the -1 mark. We're going to move over to instruments. Wow, this tutorial's getting long, isn't it? Drink break. Alright, so, excuse me. I need to drink some poison there. Alright, so, we're going to move on to instruments. I'm going to play this little tidbit here. You're going to see all the VSTs that are active right now. There's quite a few of them. You're going to see that's going through this submix, and right now, before any effects besides the effects that are on there, that it's hitting at around, I believe, -10, -8-ish decibels right there. It's hitting that before it hits the submix. What I've noticed is that with a lot of beats, the drums are the focus. Because, you know, it's a drum beat, so the beats are typically the focus. So that's why the levels are set. These levels are actually based off Vive Beats levels. I dragged his beats into it and listened and put my own spin on it, thinking, you know, what I like things to sound like. So, like I said, put your own spin on it. But as you can see, everything is hitting around -10 to -8. One thing, you know, even though all your levels may rewrite, or all your stuff may be at the right area, what it's really going to come down to is the beat itself. Okay, so let's say you have a bunch of instruments, but they're all hitting the extremely high frequency range. You know, everything is high up there and everything sounds tinny. Well, because you don't have that low end, you're not going to get that full sound. A good beat has a good low end, a good mid-range, and a good high end. You're going to need a good mix of the two, and what they typically say is that you can have only one lead. Now, don't take that literally in the sense that you can have only one VST playing the lead instrument. Just take that in the sense that if you have a mid-range instrument fighting with the upper mid-range instrument, you know, doing its own thing, you're not gonna have unity. And because you lack that unity in your music, your mix is you're gonna have a hell of a time mixing your beat if you're working with a hella tinny melody and chords and everything. You gotta make sure your chords and your melodies and everything aren't fighting with each other to begin with. There's got to be a certain cohesiveness to it before you even get to this point. But this is why I'm telling you now. This is laying your foundation out for you, so you have this basic idea on how to set things up, how things work. Now, I haven't even gotten into the EQs yet for everything, but what I do is I establish what I want to be the lead, you know, what's backing everything else up. And I think in this case that would be the cube preset in Citrus. You know, you've heard that from Drop the World, because Drop the World was produced in Fruity Loops. These chords are unique, but I'm using this cube preset, which was used for Drop the World. So that's just a note right there. You can see that people are using Fruity Loops to produce high-end music. So if you're producing on Fruity Loops and you're thinking, man, I need to upgrade to something else, just know that it's not always the tool, it's the person behind the tool. So I just use this preset because I wanted to put my own spin on that preset. I figured, well, just because someone else used it doesn't mean that I shouldn't be able to put my own creative spin on it. I mean, these are my chords that I came up with. But it's just like saying because someone else uses a sawtooth lead, you can no longer use sawtooth leads in your beats. Sawtooth leads are in so many beats, so many beats that the last contest I had a requirement that you don't put them in, which reminds me I still have to put up that likes chart. But getting back to the tutorial, and I'm not just gonna brush that off. I am gonna get that likes chart. It's just 60 plus annotations. It's gonna take a hell of a long time. Getting back to the tutorial, I'm sorry I keep going off topic, just because there's such a wide breadth of information to cover. You could literally talk about mixing and mastering for days on end. I mean, there's that much information in it. So I'm just grazing the surface right here. I'm just scratching the surface with you, and it's gonna be up to you to get to those more advanced levels, because I myself am a beginner at this too. So I'm just showing you what I know. But so like I said, I cheat. Like, I play my instruments together, and as you can hear, that's the lead is probably this horn right here along with the other. Okay, so I've established my lead, and I've decided, yeah, I want that to lead. So since everything is linked up and the mixer here, I can tweak my volume levels here by dragging here, tweak the panning a little bit, you know, mess with everything. And if I remember right, yeah, I have everything going through this submix. All these instruments are going through this little instrument submix before they even hit this submix, so that when I'm working on the beat, I can say, you know, I think the instruments are a little too loud right now. You know, I love the levels that I've got everything on, but they're a little too loud in comparison to the drums. So I can just drag that submix down a little bit, and that'll lower the instruments in the overall mix. I do the same thing for the drums. I do my best to put all the drums through their own little submix channel, so that I can adjust the entire drums by themselves and adjust all the instruments too. That's just another thing to keep in mind. So what I normally do is, after setting the basic levels, what I do is on every single channel I bring in an EQ. And this is the EQ I use. It is a URS EQ plugin. I really like this EQ just because of how warm it keeps the sound, and it doesn't drastically cut things. So now we're going to get into the technical aspect of EQing and some common misconceptions about it, and why so many people are having a lot of trouble with it. This EQ right here is the same as like Fruity's parametric EQ2. It sounds different because like I said, every EQ is different. But basically they're the same thing. It's just this EQ I use it works by ear, and I listen and I mix and master by ear, and this EQ is more visual, but you can also use this by ear too. So a common misconception, don't use this EQ as an example here of how I mix and master, but a common misconception with beats is that we hear that to mix and master you have to cut certain frequencies out so everything can sit tightly. So let's say you have a instrument and you just go blah, and you cut out everything but that little bit. That, at least to my knowledge, this is the wrong way to mix and master most things, because you're cutting out all the sound information at all these different frequencies. You're cutting it down by -18 decibels. And believe it or not, in something like a kick or something like a hi-hat, there's vital sound information at different levels. So just as an example, I'm going to go over to my kick here, and we're going to go over pattern 3. Okay, we're going to look at my kick's EQ. And close that one out, and I'm going to get rid of this one just so we can move over to the kick. Alright, I'm going to pull up this parametric EQ too so you can have a visual aid while I do the comparison. Okay, so we're going to just listen just to the kick by itself. I mix and master my drums all together, but we're just going to listen to this kick by itself. Okay, now you're going to see here what I do with my mixing and mastering. You can, just by looking at this, you can tell what I've done. With each and every kick, like I said, everything's going to be different. Every single project is unique. Every single kick is unique. Just because I do everything at these frequencies does not mean it will work on your project at these frequencies. You're just going to have to experiment and find what works for you. Alright, so you're going to look here. We have a shelf at 110 Hertz. So I'm going to drag this. This is the low end shelf on parametric EQ too. You can see this. I'm pointing at the screen. Why do I do that? Okay. You can see this right here. It's saying how many hertz is that. I'm just doing this as an example so you can see what I've done by ear rather than visually. So I'm going to drag this over to 110 Hertz. That's where we're at. Okay. And it shows I've gone down by -1.4 decibels. So you can tell on the grand scheme of things, this is 0, the 0 decibel mark, which is where everything starts at on your EQ, and here's the -6 mark. So -1.4 decibels is about 1/4 of the way from 0 to -6, because 4 times 1.4 is like 5.6 or something, roughly 6. So it's about 1/4 of the way down to 6. So we're at 110 Hertz, and one thing you can also, if you get it to the frequency you want, you can just drag up here, to mess with it. So we're gonna drag it down about 1/4 of the way to -6 decibels.
You're watching Seasho. Want drops like these in your music? Then stop by www.knoxhouse.com for the hottest custom drops on the web. Mention my man Seasho on any order over $20 and get a bonus drop free.